ahead of you. We're already over here. backup isn't here. She usually walks in right at the She always is right on time. Yes. Good evening and welcome to the regular meeting of the Independent City Council for Tuesday, September 3rd, 2019. Our invocation this evening will be offered by Elizabeth Strobel, pastor of Trinity Presbyterian Church. If you please stand for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Holy One, on this Labor Day week, we give you thanks for all who labor in and for our City of Independence. Bless all of our citizens with meaningful work and tasks that all people may live lives of dignity, happiness, and fulfillment. As we have celebrated our labor in our city during Santa Caligan, we give you thanks for the safety and companionship of our community. Bless this City Council meeting, that all here might labor to make Independence a more secure, just, and prosperous place to live. We ask these things in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmembers Huff.
Here.
Perkins.
Here.
Doherty. DeLucy.
Here.
Robertson.
Here.
Van Camp.
Here.
Mayor Weir.
Here. We have 4 citizen requests this evening. We will begin with Danny Thomas II, who requests to speak to the council regarding the bus routes. Mr. Thomas, if you are here, please come forward. Okay. Our next speaker is Kenneth Love, who wishes to speak on public safety projects on 23rd Street. Madam City Clerk, how much time will Mr. Love have?
2 minutes.
2 minutes, Mr.
Mayor.
Love.
2 minutes. Good evening, council. I'll make it real quick and short. A few weeks back, I requested a copy of this 23rd project. It's contract. They only have a week and 1 day left before they should start being fined for the dirt that's on the street that just keeps making it worse, for concrete that's piled up. If I piled concrete in my yard, I'm sure somebody from codes would be there with a nice little letter telling me I need to straighten up my project. So I'm asking the city again for a copy of this contract so that I can see the fines. I'm not going to ask no more. I'll take the next step, which is filing under the Sunshine Law. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ella DePriest, who wishes to speak on marijuana dispensaries and zoning. If you just state your name for the record, and you will have 5 minutes.
My name is Ella DePriest, and I live in the City of Independence. And I have to let you guys know that I'm a little concerned about the fact that there's zoning problems with the dispensaries that we voted in to allow proper use of medical marijuana with medical licensing distributing. I'm a little concerned about the fact that somebody who is in pain and in constant pain cannot receive proper dosing, legal dosing. I am one of those people that medical doctors just look at me and shake their heads. It's a long story, so I'm not going to go into it. I don't have the time. But let me just say, it's not fair, it's not right that you guys should keep us from what we should have available to us here in our own city. I'm sure we're not so flush with money that we can afford just to let money like this slide through our fingers. Granted, there's not going to be millions of dollars for us, but there will be added money that you guys have asked for numerous times. You guys continue to ask us for money. And yet, when something like this comes up that you can have some money, you guys fight us on it and give us zoning problems and zoning regulations. It just doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem just. Especially when all the laws are in our favor. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, our final speaker tonight is Catherine Alexander, who wishes to speak regulation of medical marijuana and apothecaries.
She'll have 5 minutes.
You'll
This is
have
a new
5
topic.
minutes, Mrs. Alexander.
Thank you. My name is Catherine Alexander, and I live in Independence. And the reason that I chose to speak this evening was last week I spoke to someone, and I asked them about regulation of any apothecary and drugstore in the city of Independence. And what I am proposing is that any taxation revenue that does occur as a result of these apothecaries, that they should have a specific fund to have inspectors that are cross-trained in the health department and with law enforcement, so that they are able to go to any drugstore, including Walgreens, CVS, any other type of drugstore, and be able to determine whether or not people are adequately being provided sanitary handling of the items. The reason I say that is the person told me that the state would inspect them. And I am here to tell you, as a victim of Robert Courtney, who adulterated drugs for 15 years and never got noticed by the state, that the state will not take care of this. So I'm saying that I think that we should ensure that there is local accountability for the employees, store cleanliness, and sales tax commitments are being honored. I think that this should happen for all drugstores, not just any particular type. It will help to ensure that illegitimate individuals, people that are not legitimate patients, will patronize other locations, so you'll drive away bad business and attract good business. Continuing police patrol shortages are a problem still in the neighborhood that I live in, so adding a dispensary to the area that's already having a criminal problem would not be helpful to me personally. That being said, it is my belief that commitments and guardianships will escalate due to a lack of problem-solving skills among people that are borderline mentally ill and consuming substances. I believe that uninsured hospitalizations will increase because very few people in the retail industry have adequate hospitalization, and also people are sometimes not insured that are seeking alternative care. These are things that need to be thought out. Consumption of drugs or medical marijuana or whatever is being called at the time on the property should require a driver in order to prevent DUI increases. So these are things that really need to be thought out before placement occurs. I know it's a long way down the road, and I am definitely not saying whether I am for or against this, because I really don't have an opinion. My primary issue is if we already have a crime problem that cannot seem to get controlled, can we think about what we're doing in the future, since we certainly have not thought about what's going on in the past. Additionally, I wanted to bring to your attention that, and I'm sure you know, there has been some recent violent issues at certain federally funded housing developments. I believe that those places actually have investigatory bodies that might be helpful in eliminating fraud and crime. So if you need help in contacting them, I would be happy to help you find that resource. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Okay, that concludes our citizen requests to speak for this evening. We do have quite a bit on the agenda this evening. I would like to request from the council that we take the non-ordinance action item out of order and have that presentation first before we get to our regular agenda. If there's no objection from the council, we will go ahead and address the non-ordinance action item. Madam City Clerk, if you would please read it if I can find it. And I would ask Mr. City Manager if you would like to have our speakers come forward and talk a little bit about this item.
Sure. Do we need to read the item first?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Recommendation from the Special Health Insurance Review Committee, SHIRK.
All right. Madam Mayor, members of the council, thank you, Madam City Clerk. When the council adopted Independence for All in January 2017, a large tenet of that was ensuring that our city finances remained stable and sustainable. And a further portion of that was making sure that we were able to sustain and maintain our long-term obligations. So at our annual council strategic planning session last year, we began to consider and contemplate some of those long-term obligations, one of which was our retiree health insurance program. Certainly, the proposal that we brought forward earlier this spring left us miles apart initially from where many of the individuals and families who are impacted by this stood and viewed this issue. I am pleased to report tonight that 30 days earlier than we were instructed to present this, city staff in partnership with many of our retirees, many of our current employees have reached a sound agreement on this that meets the tenets of our strategic plan, addresses our long-term obligations, but most importantly, addresses the well-being of our retirees and our employees and our future employees here in this city. I would ask that our Assistant City Manager, Adam Norris, who represented our office on this, along with Mr. Bob Sorensen, who represented the Chapter 1 loggers retirees of the City of Independence, would come up and explain a little bit more to the council about what this agreement reaches and the items behind that. But I do want to, as they're coming forward, note, I don't believe, this will make world news tonight, but this is a very historic occasion for the city, and I personally am grateful for the work of Mr. Sorensen and Mr. Norris.
So also like for Chris Roars to come up, who represented the Stay Well Committee.
Very good. So a lot of work has taken place over the last several months, and thank you for dedicating the time. So tell us what, if you would, for all the people who are here and watching this evening, what this final conclusion has been.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, City Council. I really am happy to be here. I can't say that always in the past, but I feel like I should be very happy. This was all started with a resolution that you, the council, passed, forming a new committee because of the problems that we were looking at in the changes of insurance for the 65 and over retirees. In that resolution, with a 7-0 vote, you approved a new committee to be formed, which consisted of 3 from the city, 3 retirees, and 3 from the Stay Well Committee as advisors. I'd like to take this time to thank all the people on that committee. Don Davenport and Larry Kaufman, who was with me, who represented the retirees, Adam Norris, Dan Montgomery, and Sheila Saxton, who represented the city, along with Chris Roars, Cindy Culp, and Mike Beaton, who represented the loggers, the Stay Well Committee as advisors. When I went into this, I didn't feel good about it. I didn't feel we were going to be able to succeed, and it started out really rough. As I'm sure Adam can tell you, the first few meetings that we had on Wednesdays, there was, I probably raised my voice a few times, and there was some hard discussions. But it started to progress. We brought in Cigna to offer up some plans that we maybe could look at as something that could be put in place of the Stay Well plan that we were under. Cigna brought in an F plan, supplement plan, and a custom plan. The custom plan was designed to mirror exactly what we had currently under Stay Well. At my request, they also brought in a G plan, supplement plan. I've learned more about insurance in the last 4 months than I ever thought I'd ever learn, and hope to never have to learn it again. The committee continued to meet. We continued to start moving forward. I think our discussions became more together. I believe Adam and I formed a lot better bond as the meetings went along. And finally, a couple weeks ago, Adam showed me a proposal that he had that he thought maybe could work for the committee. That proposal is similar to what you have in your packet. It showed the 3 healthcare plans, the custom plan, which was agreed to stay at the 80-20% split, which I had always insisted that we had been promised all our careers as retirees, and that we needed to keep the supplement from the city. We also had talked about the 83-17 split, and I was very firm, as Adam will tell you, if he wants to, that I would not waver on those splits, that I felt that the city needed to subsidize our insurance. After looking at the plans and the figures that were put forth by Cigna, they gave us costs. They were very helpful. They gave us the cost it would take if we went to the F plan, to the G plan, or the custom plan. You'd be looking at the 80-20 and the 83-17 splits. At that point, I think the whole committee felt like, yes, we were finally moving forward. We finally could see that there could be a compromise that could do what the resolution asked us to do. Find a solution for the retirees and for the city and their budget problems. We continued at that effort, and I had conversations with Adam after the 2-week ago proposal, and we talked over a few little things, and we came to an agreement that we would give up the 83-17 split and stay with just the 80-20 split on the custom plan. And then the F and the G plan would not cost the city any more money. It would cost the employee more money, but they did have a choice of making the choice of the F, the G, or the custom plan, which did not cost the city any additional money. I thought that was very good that we came up with such a deal for the 879 people I'm standing here representing. So following that, last Wednesday we had hopefully our final meeting. And there was a motion made at that meeting by me and seconded that we take this proposal that's in front of you and present it to the council, pending me having a meeting with my retirees and showing them what the proposal was and getting their vote on the proposal. The meeting Wednesday was unanimous to take this proposal to you. I never thought we'd ever reach that. It was so awesome to see this committee be able to do that. I then had a membership meeting at the FOP Lodge on Thursday. I don't know exactly the total count, but if you know where the FOP Lodge is, there was not a parking place in the parking lot or in the grass field that we own. That's how many people came. I estimate it to be 250 to 300 retirees showed up, some from as far away as Florida. That's how important this issue was to these people. And that was the emotional drain this took on me. We discussed the proposal. I showed them the entire proposal. I answered questions for probably an hour or so. Then we had a motion made to accept this proposal, and it was a unanimous vote in favor of, which was awesome. So I stand before you here today telling you that what we have presented to you does what you asked this committee to do. If you take 2020, January 1, if you currently kept us all in the Stay Well plan as we have been over the years, the cost of the city for the year 2020 was going to be over $5 million. The cost of this plan to the city for the year 2020 will be $2,341,000. That is a cost savings of the next year of over $2,600,000 on what the city is currently paying for the 65 retirees. I can't describe to you how I never thought we could get to that, and we did get to that. Again, I want to just thank all of the members. They worked so hard, many hours, many discussions. I think Adam would agree that him and I started at a very shaky part. I think that him and I know I got loud. He kept his temper a lot better than I did. The first few meetings were loud, and it didn't look like it was going anywhere, but I think as time went on and we worked on this, I would have to say that Adam and I came to a very good understanding, and I think that we both have mutual respect for each other, and I think that is so important. I'd like to conclude by asking the city council, I was asking for a 7-0 vote, but there's only 6 of you present. I'd love to see a 6-0 vote in favor of the proposal that was given to you and reward the committee for the hard work it did. And just to end this on a lighter side, I came up with this. I think maybe the city, mayor, and the council might want to consider sending Adam and I to Washington, D.C. Because I think Adam and I proved that two people on opposite sides get together and work to a compromise. And I don't see that happening in Washington, D.C., so maybe we need to go and give them an idea on how to do that. I thank you very much.
Great idea.
I'm Chris Roars. I'll try and make this short and sweet. Well, I'm already short, so
And sweet.
I'm halfway there.
And sweet.
I want to thank the council for giving us this opportunity to form this committee and to look at a problem that affected not only the city, but the employees and retirees. When I say employees, hopefully everybody that's here now someday will be a retiree. We want something there for them. I want to thank Adam. He was a co-chair with me, and although sometimes it was like herding cats, we got through it, and we did, I think, a really good job and outstanding product and proposal for you. So once again, I think cooperation, transparency, and like minds working towards a difficult problem, we'll find a solution. And that I hope that it would be remembered in the future if something like this came up again, that we'd once again be given the opportunity, not just for the insurance, but anything else that involves the employees like that. We are good thinkers. You've got good employees. I thank the rest of the committee that was there. They all showed up once a week. They brought the rain with them most of the time. We had some pretty bad storms. But anyway, they all came, they worked hard, they did a good job, and you've got a good proposal in front of you. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
All right, I'll round this out real quick. I do want to say thank you as well to the committee. It's a great group of people. Had some good ideas and some good thoughts. I do have a lot of respect for these two gentlemen behind me. We developed a unique bond through this, and we came out the other end, I'd say as friends, respecting each other. So a little bit of the business end of this thing. This recommendation is in front of you. If it's approved, this would authorize staff to make any of those necessary changes we need to do to our plan documents with Cigna, our personnel policies, and execute an agreement with Cigna to move this thing forward. So with that, we'd stand for any questions.
Okay. Other comments or questions? Councilmember?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Adam, how does it affect the Stay Well Fund? By removing these 800-plus employees, how does that affect the fund?
Yeah. I believe I will let our Stay Well representative answer that question.
We've been in very close contact with Lockton, who is our consultant for the city benefits, and been very helpful with us for the Stay Well program. They have researched this and done all the, crunching the numbers and whatnot, and they said that it will not affect the plan. And we asked them more than once, and we always got the same answer. Basically what's happening is our retirees are starting to turn over. I say turnover. We're getting a lot of retirees, and that's affecting the main plan. And because the older people use their health care a little more, they have more problems and more need. So anyway, according to Lockton, we pay them good consulting fees, and I trust them considerably, in fact, without a doubt. But they say no, it will be no effect on the main plan.
Thank you. And one other question for the city manager. The $2.7 million this is going to cost the city, where's the money coming from?
So in the first year, the current fiscal year we're in, that number can be halved because this will take effect January 1. We will be working with our department heads over the course of the next 2 weeks. Met with my team today. We're going to be working with them to identify those budgetary savings. The plan will be to bring that to the council on October 7th as part of a budget amendment. So we will be doing semi-annual budget amendments, and so the October 7th one will contemplate the reductions within the specific funds were necessitated to, but the answer is I don't know yet, but that's why we have our qualified staff to identify where we can capture those ongoing savings in the manner that is least harmful to the community.
And we'll be seeing that October 7th.
October
you say?
7th.
Thank you. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Any other comments or questions from the council? Hearing none, please call. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you.
It's hard to do.
Hi.
Listen, I'd just like to say that this is similar to a plan I brought 3 years ago, similar to a plan I brought 2 years ago, similar to other plans. Doesn't mean a thing, and that's not to say that it wasn't looked at. What you have alluded to, the coming together and hearing, the ability to sit down and make a compromise is what's to be applauded here. And I know Mr. Ward knows more about this than any individual because I've talked to him so much that now I know a little something about it, and this represents it. But more than this, that we come together, more than the savings, I want to thank you for your service. To our city.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you. Okay, Madam City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmembers Huff.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
DeLucy.
Yes.
Robertson.
Yes.
Van Camp.
Yes.
Mayor Weir.
Yes. Item passes.
Adam.
Yeah. No, go ahead. Yeah, I'm going to give you a minute to, clear out. Yeah. I'll just file my nails. I know it.
Popular anymore?
They want to go the beer.
Oh, the guy in the front row? I did meet him once. Do I have my Mayor Pro Tem back?
You do.
Okay. Okay. We're going to proceed with our presentation resolution. This is a resolution recognizing Angela Miller as our Employee of the Month. Madam City Clerk.
Whereas the City Employee Recognition Program recognizes outstanding performance by the employees of the City of Independence, and whereas the Employee Recognition Committee has selected Angela Miller, Business License Compliance Officer in the Community Development Department, as the Employee of the Month for September 2019, now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Independence, Missouri as follows, that the City Council of the City of Independence, Missouri joins in recognizing Angela Miller as the City of Independence Employee of the Month for September 2019.
I'd entertain a motion for approval.
Second?
I need a motion.
So moved.
Yes. It's been moved and seconded, not in that order, but that'll work.
So moved and seconded.
Yeah, there you go. But are there any comments or questions from the council? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff? Yes. Perkins?
Yes.
DeLucy?
Yes.
Robertson?
Yes.
Van Camp?
Yes.
Mayor Ware?
Yes. Angela Miller has been with the City of Independence for 4.5 years, beginning her career in the Water Department in 2015 and moving to Finance in 2018, and then joining Community Development in 2018, where she currently works as a Business License Compliance Officer. Angela says what she likes most about her job is the opportunity to be out in her community, meeting business owners and learning who they are and what they do. And she learns something new every day. Angela says her career goals are to be prepared to face new challenges and remain adaptable as in her line of work. She can rely on constant change. Angela says the most valuable lesson she has learned is to never underestimate the power of empathy and use it at every chance you get. Angela says each day varies, but in general, on a typical day, she communicates with our businesses, whether it's over the phone or in person, and they make it a priority to provide education and the resources necessary to become compliant or stay compliant with the business licensing code. Angela says Independence does a fantastic job honoring its history while continuing to look towards the future, and that's what makes Independence a good place to live, work, and visit. Angela says she loves to travel, so hobbies and interests outside of work always include planning the next family vacation. Both of her teenage daughters are wrestlers for Truman High School. Her youngest will wrestle with Team USA this upcoming March in Estonia. They definitely keep her and her husband very busy. Please join me in recognizing Angela Miller as the September 2019 Employee of the Month. Okay, this takes us to our proclamation for National Preparedness Month. Madam City Clerk.
Whereas National Preparedness Month is a nationwide effort held each September, and whereas the goal of National Preparedness Month is to increase public awareness about the importance of preparing for emergencies and to encourage individuals to take action, and whereas the City of Independence will not be truly prepared for a disaster until every individual, family, and business takes personal responsibility for being prepared. And whereas all citizens need to take some simple steps to prepare for emergencies, because during a disaster, citizens must have the ability to care for themselves and their families for at least 3 days, 72 hours. This 72-hour window of resiliency may mean providing for yourself by having an emergency supply kit, making a family emergency plan, being informed about different threats, and getting involved in Community Emergency Response Team CERT training. And whereas the citizens of Independence should read and follow the Citizen Responsibility Guide from the city's Emergency Preparedness Division to ensure all have taken the necessary actions, including accessing the available disaster preparedness information, which is available by contacting the EPD of the Independence Fire Department. And whereas the recent natural disasters throughout the United States, including the recent flash floods and the western wildland fires, illustrate the potential devastation to communities, and highlight the importance of pre-planning disaster response and sheltering operations. And whereas the city would like to officially recognize the many volunteers involved with the Community Emergency Response Team, the Disaster Animal Response Team, the Emergency Communication Service, Fire Explorers, Storm Spotter Team, and the Specialized Emergency Operations Center command staff volunteers who routinely offer their invaluable services to make our community safer. Now therefore, Eileen N. Weir, Mayor of the City of Independence, Missouri, do hereby proclaim the month of September 2019 as National Preparedness Month, and calls upon the people of Independence to join their fellow citizens across the United States in recognizing and participating in this special observance.
Okay, thank you very much. And Chief Short? Oh, Dante? Okay. Okay, this takes us to our consent agenda. Mayor Pro Tem.
Mayor Weir. I move to approve the reports and recommendations of the city manager.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any items any council member wishes pulled for separate consideration?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Sorry, Madam Mayor. Resolution 19785, please.
Madam Mayor,
Okay. Hang on. Yes, go ahead.
19784.
Okay. And I am going to pull 19780 and 19781. Are there any others? Okay, hearing none. Madam City Clerk, will you please call the roll on the consent agenda minus Resolution 19785, 19784, 19780, and 19781.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
DeLucy,
Yes.
Robertson, Van Camp,
Yes.
Mayor Weir.
Yes. Councilmember Perkins,
Thank you.
19785.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't have a long statement. I'm just not in favor of rescinding ordinance number 19023.
Councilman Robertson, we're having a little trouble hearing you. I know you probably want to speak on this. Well, I just want to ask a question, a technical question of the city clerk regarding rescinding an ordinance with a resolution. I'm just not clear on the procedure for that.
Really, all that needed to be done was a motion to be made at tonight's meeting to rescind it.
Okay.
At any time, the motion can be made. Councilman Roberson wanted it something a little bit more official than just making the motion this evening, so he requested that it be put into a resolution form.
Okay, very good. Councilman, we'll try to.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. So the reason I wanted to rescind this motion is because it's in violation of the Missouri Constitution. And there's no reason for us to continue to have it as part of an ordinance for the City of Independence when we're in violation and put us legally at risk, as well as in violation for the state to come in and say we're in violation and declare it null and void. So we might as well do it ourselves before the state comes before us. It doesn't leave us with another ordinance at this point, but obviously the amended ordinance on 784 is being referred back to the City Planning Commission for discussion and a hearing. So I think we don't lose anything. We actually gain something by rescinding this ordinance, which has put us in a position of violating the Constitution of the state of Missouri. So there's no reason to keep it, in other words.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
Madam Mayor, I have a question for the Law Department.
I'll defer to the city attorney here.
If we rescind the ordinance, that means there is no local ordinance in place that any applicant has to abide by, correct?
There could be general zoning ordinance requirements that would have to be met, but what would happen is the state's rules would fall into place and take the place of the city's local ordinance specifically on this matter.
Okay. And the state's rules were issued pursuant to the constitutional amendment the voters voted in, right?
That's correct.
It would not prevent us from looking at this more and reissuing further ordinances.
That's correct.
So what this would do if we rescind it is simply put the state constitution in effect with no interference from us at this point.
That's right.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Councilmember Perkins.
Unknowing, know what that constitution is, please?
Mr. Councilmember?
Madam Mayor.
Ma'am, I can't see you over there. I'm sorry, but this is not for, the public has already had their opportunity to speak. This is the council discussion time. So if you would please refrain from making comments during the council meeting, we'd appreciate it. Councilmember Perkins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll call for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing
Okay,
none-
I'm confused. So, Mr. Perkins, you're asking for us to approve 19785, which would in fact rescind it, correct?
Correct. There's a motion for approval, yes.
Yes, thank you.
Right.
Okay, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
No.
Perkins,
No.
DeLucy,
Yes.
Robertson,
Yes.
Van Camp,
No.
Mayor Weir.
Yes, motion fails. Or, not, I'm sorry, Resolution 19785 fails. Councilmember DeLucy.
Madam Mayor, 19784 basically says, let's follow the Missouri constitutional amendment that the voters passed, and that's what 19058 does. I wanted it, I think this is the one where we had it for first reading a few weeks ago. I wanted it to be an emergency ordinance. We did a study session on it. I meant for it to come back as a second reading. I guess I wasn't clear on that, not as a resolution remanding it back to the Planning Commission. I don't see a reason to remand it back to the Planning Commission. I would like to, if I can, amend this for a resolution adopting Bill number 19058.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Madam City Clerk, because I did ask this question also regarding when an item is postponed, can you just explain the procedure when an item is postponed?
Essentially, at the meeting, it was postponed for discussion at the study session, so in order for it to be brought back up again, someone would have needed to make the recommendation to bring it back up at this meeting for the second reading. Since that wasn't done, then it essentially just postponed it indefinitely until someone brings it back up.
Okay, just so we're clear on that. Okay,
Right.
It's been moved and seconded to amend 19784 for approval by the council. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Okay, so we vote first on the amendment? Okay. Madam City Clerk, will you please call?
I'm sorry, what are
roll?
we voting
Yeah.
on?
So Madam City Clerk, I'll let you.
The vote is to amend Bill number 19784 to approve Bill number 19058, which is the ordinance that was suggested to go back to the Planning Commission. So initially, this item is to remand this back to the Planning Commission, Bill number 19058. Her amendment is to just go ahead and approve it and not remand it back to Planning Commission.
So which one are we voting on first?
You're voting on the amendment, which would be to approve Bill number 19058 through this resolution.
To go back to the planning commission?
No,
No.
to approve the
To
item.
adopt it.
To adopt
Bill number 19058, which had its first reading on August the 5th. Is that correct?
I believe so.
And then was postponed to a study session and has not received a second reading. And Councilmember DeLucy has indicated that her intention was to bring this back for a second reading, so she's asking for us to essentially treat this as the second reading of 19058. And so the amendment that we are voting on is to approve essentially Bill number 19058. And if that motion passes, then that will be adopted. If it fails, we still will vote on the resolution to remand it back to the Planning Commission. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
if I may just say a few words, I think it would be fine to remand it back to the Planning Commission. However, any discussion or any changes would put us again in violation of the Constitution of the state. And so it seems to be that it's a moot point to refer it back for more discussion. And we've had all the legal experts, we've had an outside law firm help write this. We've incorporated into it some things that Councilmember Gordy wanted in the original resolution anyway. So there has to be some special use permits that are already written into that, which are unique to Independence. And it seems like any more discussion is really not going to allow us to change anything that would not put us at risk of being in violation with the Constitution, again, of the state. So I see no reason to wait or to refer it back. We need to go ahead. We've had the outside experts tell us that this is the best we can do and still be in compliance with the state constitution. So there's really no reason to fool around. The experts have told us, we've looked at all of this, and unless somebody on the council knows something I don't, there's no reason not to pass this. So if there is something that I'm not reading or seeing or hearing about the state constitution that we should discuss, I'm willing to listen to anybody else on the council tonight to explain that to me and the citizens.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are there any, I do have some comments. This was the original ordinance 19023, which was approved unanimously by the Planning Commission, brought forward to this council. Our city attorney, our community development director, and John Mayfield, who this council had requested research this, all told us at that time that making additional buffers or special use permits were not recommended, and it passed this council by a vote of 5-2. Then it was August 5th, Councilmember DeLucy, and at the July 15th meeting, Councilmember DeLucy did provide some other amendments that were more in compliance with the state of Missouri. Then on August 5th, the 19058 was introduced to remove those buffers and to keep the special use permit. Councilmember, I was not here for the study session last week, but I did watch the meeting and review the information that was provided by Tom Scannell regarding what other cities surrounding us are either considering or have already adopted. We are the only city that is considering requiring a special use permit. While I voted against the amendments originally that imposed the additional buffers and the special use permits, because as the councilman has said, at that time, I and one other council member recognized that our professional staff had advised us that those were potentially in conflict with the Constitution. So I am not going to vote in favor of 19058 tonight because I don't favor the special use permit when no other city in our area is requiring a special use permit. I am in favor of 19023 as it was presented to the council after going through the process of the Planning Commission and the time and expertise of our professional staff that traveled all over this region and all over the state of Missouri to provide this recommendation that was declined by the majority of the council. I am going to support if the amended motion fails, I will support returning it to the Planning Commission so that a full public hearing can take place. Because the full public hearing that took place at the Planning Commission originally did not address these issues. There's lots of people here and in our region who are coming to this council wanting to be heard, and I believe that they should be heard at a full public hearing, which is what is in compliance with another state law, which is the statute that says that the full public hearing should take place at the Planning Commission. So With that, if there's no further comments or questions, Madam City Clerk, if you would please call the roll on the amendment to Resolution 19784.
Councilmembers Huff,
No.
Perkins,
No.
DeLucy,
Yes.
Robertson,
Yes.
Van Camp,
No.
Mayor Weir.
No. Motion to amend fails. Councilmember DeLucy, Resolution 19784.
Move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
DeLucy,
Yes.
Robertson,
Yes.
Van Camp,
Yes.
Mayor Weir.
Yes. Resolution passes. Mr. City Manager, 19780, would you, again, I wasn't here at the study session, but I did watch the presentation on our Historic Preservation Master Plan and the related items related to that. So my question on this is, what does the I'm not clear about what the historic building survey entails, and when that survey is completed, what information the council can expect to receive from that?
Certainly. So as part of the update to our comprehensive development plan, which was adopted by the council recently, that entails some updates to our historic preservation master plan as well. As a certified local government community, which makes Independence eligible for a number of historic preservation grants, we are required to update our historic preservation master plan every 5 years. There are certain portions of our community, however, that either have not been updated in quite some time or quite frankly never at all. So with 19780, this is a continuation of some items that were approved previous to by the council, which address a historic assessment of the Fairmont neighborhood. The overall plan really positions the city to be able to compete for grants, grant dollars, to have that inventory of our sites, to understand their needs, to understand where additional maintenance may come into play. Really provides us more of a robust portfolio of these sites. And quite frankly, we've lacked doing this on the routine basis that we need to, or have not even begun to scratch the surface in other areas.
So what qualifies under, or what is our scope of work that we anticipate doing that would, selecting the historic sites that would be inspected? I mean, certainly we would expect those that the city operates as tourism sites, historic mansions, but what about other privately owned structures and even residences within our city?
Right, so with 19780, this is a continuation of a previous grant that was approved for the Fairmont area. This continues into that. Again, it positions us as a city, as the council's well aware, we have some of our home dollars that help provide funding for minor home repair, issues of that nature, and this allows us to compete for those dollars specifically within the Fairmont area, is 19780.
Okay, and then is there opportunity moving forward to extend that program into other areas of the city, or just specific scattered buildings that would be helpful?
There is, and as has been the case with a number of topical areas in the city, we really want to make this more of a standardized routine part of our business operating plan so that we don't go these wide spreads of time without conducting these types of programs and assessments.
Okay. All right, then I would move for approval of 19780.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Doherty, DeLucy,
Yes.
Robertson,
Yes.
Van Camp,
Yes.
Mayor Weir.
Yes. Resolution passes. 19781, I did, again, listen to the presentation and reviewed the Historic Preservation Master Plan that was made available to us. I just have a few specific questions. The goals that are laid out in the master plan, I didn't see outline there how these goals are going to be measured. This is something that over the last several years has been a key component of our strategic planning, which we have the dashboard, which is updated on a quarterly basis. And I think it's very important for us to be consistent when we're doing goal setting, to put in measurements, both quantitative and qualitative, of how we are going to measure success. So can you speak to that?
I can, and as the mayor has stated, that I think one of the real hallmarks of our strategic plan has been the quarterly reporting of our, public reporting of our metrics associated with that and our progress in implementing those goals. We want to hold that same standard here. In speaking with the Historic Preservation Manager, it's my expectation that she would work concurrently with the Heritage Commission to ensure that measurable metrics are established, and quarterly, just with like our strategic plan, that those metrics are reported on, stated in a public fashion, so that the council and the community can see our goals in an area that's quite frankly very critical to the City of Independence historic preservation. The council may note that some of the goals may seem, broad or vague. I will tell you that is intentionally so. So, for example, if we talk about creating economic incentives, that is a very broad brushstroke, but intentionally so. So year one, that may mean that we go out and try to obtain a certain amount of funding, tax incentives, or other grants and funding sources for historic preservation. And year two becomes administering a certain amount of those funds, again, setting metrics as to how many and how much of those are awarded each year.
Okay. My next question is, there was reference to developing a easy-to-use guide for the city and the citizens, but I didn't hear or I didn't catch or understand, once that work is developed, what are the next steps? I mean, how would a guide like that be useful? How would that work in the application? What would that look like? How would that be made available? Those types of questions.
Certainly. So again, we're blessed to be what we call certified local government for this. Some neighboring communities of Liberty and Lee Summit also have that distinction. So I would tell you that partnering with those communities, they're using the power of economies of scale to try to broadcast regionally that this is a program that's being administered. I think we do need to develop some more specifications, though, about how specifically that's going to be applied locally here in Independence. And that's something that I do want to work with Community Development and the Historic Preservation Manager on, because we can do all the great work in the world, but if people don't know about it, if they don't know of these opportunities, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, thank you. And finally, there's a lot of reference to technical assistance. I know that we have a very small historic preservation staff of one, and I think this is critically important as we, continue to advocate at our state capitol for the preservation of historic tax credits. Independence has been woefully neglectful, I would say, in applying those historic tax credits. We should be basking in historic tax credits in this city, especially as we go to Jefferson City year after year and fight to retain them. And so my concern, and I know Ms. Shea spoke a lot about staff supporting and using a lot of outside consulting, but this is very important, especially as we create, a guidebook for citizens and business owners and property owners who may own a historic site that would qualify or are part of an organization that's trying to preserve a historic site, many of our historic churches, for an example. I'm worried that we just don't have the bandwidth, the training, or frankly the expertise to be able to provide that kind of technical assistance that would be needed to assist people in successfully receiving historic tax credits or potentially any other grant or incentive that may be available. So can you speak to that?
Yeah, so you're right. This would probably be too much to put on the shoulders of just one individual. And that's really where the value of this program comes in. So the grant dollars allow us to partner with groups like the National Trust or the National Park Service to bring in keynote speakers, to bring in subject matter experts who can provide this information. But the really cool part is more than that, they are able to provide hands-on guidance, assistance, coaching to people who are interested in making improvements to their private residence, to our public resources, and also to our historically significant commercial properties as well. So that really is the outcome of this, is that's part of the way that we're able to leverage those grant dollars, is certain portions of those are allocated to fund the cost of employing those people who would come in and provide that subject matter expertise to the people in this community who'd want to take advantage of that.
Okay, very good. So what I would like is to address these things with the Heritage Commission as they continue to work on this plan. And I know there was a tremendous amount of citizen engagement that has taken place to develop it, but that citizen engagement needs to continue in some form, especially the citizens who own these properties and live in, anywhere in our city, which nearly all of it has historic significance, and request that, we really take some time to develop some measurement and ask for at least a quarterly update from the Heritage Commission as we, really dig into into this plan and some of these goals over the next several years.
And I'll make sure that happens.
Okay. Then I would move for approval of 19781.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
DeLucy,
Yes.
Robertson,
Next.
Van Camp,
Yes.
Mayor Weir.
Yes. Okay, this takes us to our public hearings this evening. The first is a public hearing regarding the Blue Ridge Crossing East Independence Regional Medical Center, Golf Strategies, Cracker Neck Creek, and Recovery Sales Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Plan. This is a full public hearing. Mr. Scannell.
Yes, Mayor, members of the council. Requires public hearing on all TIFs as they cross their 5-year anniversaries. That'd be the 5, 10, 15, 20, all the way up until they close at 23 years, or whatever the time period that's specified within the TIF plan. At last week's council meeting, August 26, I presented kind of an update on all 5 of these TIFs, and I'm available for any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. I will open up the public hearing if there's anyone present who would like to speak on the Blue Ridge Crossing East Independence Regional Medical Center, Golf Strategies, Cracker Neck Creek, or Recovery Sales Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Plans. Are there any comments or questions from the council? Okay, the public hearing is closed. Our next public hearing is proposed property tax rates to be set by the City of Independence for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2019, based on the current assessed valuation for Jackson and Clay counties. This is a full public hearing. Mr. City Manager.
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of the council, this is required by state statute that we have to bring the tax levy rate to the city council for approval each and every year. Unfortunately, these are numbers that are handed to us. This has nothing to do with the city's calculation, nor does the City of Independence collect a personal property tax. However, we do have the fiduciary responsibility to set and approve the tax levy rate.
This is kind of earlier than normal. We don't usually do this till later in the fall, so I'm just curious as to that.
Yeah, I guess we have the blessing this year of facing this sooner than the county typically gives us the numbers.
Okay, very good. This is a full public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to speak? Yes.
The controversy surrounding the taxes, I don't want to sound like, but are we proceeding earlier because, or just an opportunity? Because they're way out of whack, and it's going to put the collection way back.
Certainly. So again, yet to come across a Jackson County resident who's satisfied with their assessment. But I would like to reiterate, these numbers are calculated by the assessor's office, handed to the city, and told us to adopt these levy rates each and every year.
Thank you. I'm sorry, was there anybody who wished to speak in the full public hearing on the proposed property tax rates?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Ken Lott, 16808 East George Franklin Drive, Independence, Missouri. Since this tax levy in all of this is being pushed forward, thank you, Councilman, for bringing up the personal property taxes in Jackson County. Yes, some of us are not happy, especially investors like myself and my wife, that when you take one piece of property that's valued at $60,000 because it's a duplex, but then you go 500 feet and you have what Jackson County considers a townhome. A townhome now is bringing in triple this amount. Same square footage, same subdivision. Yes, me and my wife are fighting with the Board of Equalization. The sad part of us going to discuss being overrated taxes on our properties is that this Board of Equalization is made up of a committee, and this committee sits there and takes advantage of our citizens. Me and my wife watched the Board of Equalization take advantage of senior citizens that could not speak or did not have a clue of how to discuss taxes or fight over taxes or how to present evidence in front of the Board of Equalization, which we have our two little blue cards. On one of the back, the little blue cards that were received from Jackson County, it stated, bring all your evidence. You bring your evidence, they don't want to see it because there's too many that sits on the board, or you don't have enough copies. So where I'm going with this is, jumping ahead is going to cause a big problem due to the fact, I can tell you already, there has been 2 decisions on 14 of our properties to agree with us to lower our taxes or be equal. So with making this levy adjustment in the city, your mathematics is going to be so off. You're going to think you're having $1 million come in when you're only having $700,000 come in. I would wait on this decision until these Jackson County problems are solved. It's y'all's decision, but it's just a recommendation. I would wait so you know what type of money we have coming into this city, instead of donating money here, donating money there, and all of a sudden you realize, wait a minute, we don't have the money to fund these projects. But there are ways to look for other money, and hopefully in a planned session we can.
Mr. Stam, I'm sorry, is there anybody else who wishes to speak? Yes, Ms. Alexander.
Thank you. I own one property, and my thought process is if they haven't got it settled in Jackson County what they're going to do, I don't know why you would want to move forward either. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. But what I keep hearing is that someone else has decided in some other municipality of what to do, and some of those municipalities are falling apart, so I'm not sure that that should be the decision-making process every single time. You know, if Kansas City's doing something and they're falling apart, do you really want to do that in Independence? If Grandview is doing something and they're falling apart, do you want to do that in Independence? So I'm not sure that that should be the defining prospect of everything that you say. And I do think that man has a point. If you don't know what you got coming in, how can you know what to do going out?
Yep, thank you.
Laura Dominic, 3525 Blue Ridge Boulevard. I just want to clarify, and Zach, I'm sure will tell me if I'm incorrect. Jackson County sets the assessment values. They actually set the market values, and then an assessment is calculated by state law based on that, which is what ends up in the assessed values. Of course, those are probably going to change because of the appeals that people have done. But if I'm also correct, the levy rate that we're setting, that you're going to vote on tonight, has nothing to do with the assessed values of your property at all. So the levy value will be the same, whether you vote on it tonight or you vote on it in the future. Am I correct, Zach?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Well, thank you, Ms. Dominic, because I was just getting ready to ask the city manager. The notice of public hearing, which was published August 24th, it has nothing to do with the assessment. It has to do with the rate, and in many cases, what has been published, in all cases, I believe, the rate is actually lower than it was in 2018. So we aren't voting on anything this evening. We do have a first reading. If, Mr. City Manager, if at some future date, because this is a very complicated and obviously controversial issue, and the county is dealing with tens of thousands of appeal cases regarding the assessment. If at some future time, Mr. City Manager, the county were to make an adjustment, this would come back to the city to mirror what adjustment that they would make. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. Are there any other comments or questions from the council?
I have a comment.
Yes.
It's my understanding that the evaluation does have something to do with the tax rates, and because valuations may be going up, or at least they have to assume that so many months ahead of time before those are calculated for January 1st, these actually will lower tax rates because of the Hancock Amendment. They're not allowed to collect more than a certain percent increase every year. And if valuations have gone up, they have to lower the tax rates. Otherwise, they collect too much money, and then they violate the Hancock Amendment. So in my understanding, this may have to be amended, to be honest with you, because everything's in flux with the Jackson County assessment, and we don't know how that's going to wind up, and that could change. But at least for the time being, it is probably going to lower the tax rates, because as it stands now, the valuation would raise too much in taxes and violate that Hancock Amendment. So my understanding is we have to pass what is recommended to us, but it may be amended down the road. And it's lowering tax rates, by the way. So if that changes, the Jackson County budget is what's going to be affected, because they're the ones that take in the property taxes. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other comments or questions? Public hearing is closed. This takes us to our ordinances this evening. Madam City Clerk.
Bill number 19059, an ordinance finding, determining, and declaring the necessity of acquiring general utility easements and temporary construction and grading easements for the 2017-2018 neighborhood sanitary sewer project, Moore Street and Spring Street, project number 70131-707, authorizing the negotiation and eminent domain proceedings if necessary, approving the plans and specifications for the project, authorizing the use of experts as needed, authorizing and directing the execution of documents and the payment of funds to property owners or others holding property rights in conjunction with the project. Second and final reading.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
DeLucy?
Yes.
Robertson?
Yes.
Van Camp?
Yes.
Mayor Ware?
Yes. Ordinance passes. This takes us to our second reading. We do have one emergency reading this evening for a final plat that will require a 2/3 majority vote. Madam City Clerk.
Bill number 19060, an ordinance levying a tax on all real property subject to taxation on January 1st, 2019, within the corporate limits of the City of Independence, Missouri, for general revenue and public health and recreation purposes, and for the Independence Square Special Business Benefit District, said levies and assessments being separate and distinct, all for the fiscal year commencing on the first day of July 2019 and ending on the 30th day of June 2020. Bill number 19061, an ordinance vacating the entirety of a sanitary sewer easement serving the William Yates School at 3600 South Davidson Avenue, Independence, Missouri. Bill number 19062, an ordinance authorizing the city clerk to do all things necessary for the holding of a primary and general city election within the City of Independence, Missouri, in compliance with the charter adopted by said city as amended in all state laws and reference thereto, and to certify to the Jackson County Board of Election Commissioners all names of candidates properly presented by petitions under the charter, and for the holding of a primary election on February 4th, 2020, and a general election on April 7th, 2020. Bill number 19063, an ordinance accepting a grant from the Missouri State Emergency Management Agency for the Emergency Management Performance Grant Program and estimating revenue and increasing appropriations in the amount of $108,503.66 in the grants fund. Bill number 19064, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement between the City of Independence, acting through its municipal utility, Independence Power and Light, and Spectrum Mid-America for pole attachments. This will have no effect on any tax revenues or general revenues. Bill number 19065, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement between the City of Independence, acting through its municipal utility, Independence Power and Light, and Comcast of Missouri LLC for pole attachments. This will have no effect on any tax revenues or general revenues. Bill number 19508, an ordinance approving a final plat of Voorhees Vale PUD 17th plat, lots D4, D4-1, D4-R at 12712 and 12714 East 47th Terrace Court South in Independence, Missouri, and declaring an emergency. Bill number 19508, an ordinance approving a final plat of Voorhees Vale PUD 17th plat, lots D4, D4-1, D4-R at 12712 and 12714 East 47th Terrace Court South in Independence, Missouri, and declaring an emergency. Second and final reading.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
DeLucy,
Yes.
Robertson,
Yes.
Van Camp,
Yes.
Mayor Weir.
Yes. Ordinance passes. This takes us to council member comments. I'll start on my left with Councilman Van Camp.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, as the council knows, one of my big priorities in the first term was the adoption of an interior inspection program for rental properties. That was a clear mandate when I was meeting with constituents in my district and across the city. I was pleased to work with the city staff and the council who gave me the votes to get that program adopted. Other cities have followed the lead, notably, or most notably, Kansas City, in fact. A housing expert who was addressing the Kansas City Council pointed to Independence as a leader in this industry. Tomorrow I will be meeting with the city manager, a delegation from the Raytown. They contacted us about our Rental Ready program, and I'm eager to help them because this program was proven so successful. Along those lines, I want the city councils to know I am working on this Airbnb issue. Like rental properties, there used to be unlicensed businesses operating in our community. Like Rental Ready, I think additional regulations are needed to protect both guests at these properties as well as our neighbors around them. Tourism is a key asset for Independence, but it must be managed responsibly. I look forward to bringing the council additional updates to this program.
Thank you. Councilmember DeLucy.
Comprehensive mental health building. Where are we on selling it?
I would anticipate some exciting news at your next council meeting.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Second, can can we have some kind of handout or something like that regarding charter obligations and sunshine law obligations given to committees as well as council members?
So I know, Councilwoman, you brought this up before, and staff and I have been looking at this, so let me cast a wide shadow here for you. Starting at the uppermost broad levels, the Missouri Municipal League does offer both orientation for primarily I would say for newly elected officials, but I know the former city clerk, I know the mayor participated in certified government officials training, which really focuses on a lot of this. So there's opportunities with the Missouri Municipal League there. Locally, the Lauber Law Firm, which works with a lot of Missouri municipalities, offers orientations and trainings ongoing, both for new and current elected officials. I am working, as the council knows, with the city managers in Blue Springs and Lee Summit through our shared services initiative. This is one of the early deliverables of that, are some trainings. But at our most local level, point well taken, because I know there's specificity that gets down to our charter, to our boards and commissions. I think there were efforts made previously by members of the council to develop training and orientation for specifically to members of the city council. I think it's time to revisit that and resuscitate it. We've had a lot of turnover on our boards and commissions, and I think it's a good time to take a look at that. So we know the resources are out there at a broader level, but I think some opportunities to address this here within our own four corners would be a point well taken.
If we could do that within the next month or two, it's just, I don't want to wait until January, February, March.
Right.
I mean, that doesn't help us, so
Correct.
I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Councilmember Robertson.
No comments, thank you tonight.
Councilman Huff.
No comments tonight.
Councilman Perkins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you know, over the past year, a point of discussion has been the spring cabin, and myself is on the committee as well as Councilman Doherty and Karen DeLucy. And Eric, as I'm kind of making some statements, do you mind walking up and kind of giving us a brief rundown of what our moving forward looks like? But Councilman Doherty is not able to be here because of family commitments, but the committee that was formed currently supports the current proposal for the restoration and relocation to the Pioneer Spring Cabin to the National Front Trails Museum. And Mr. Erfurt, can you kind of give us a brief synopsis of what that looks like and our next steps moving forward with that?
Sure, happy to. Eric Erfurt, Director of Parks, Recreation, and Tourism. Mayor, members of the council, we have been studying this for the past 6 months or so to try to figure out just how to both preserve the cabin as well as ensure that the cabin is going to be well utilized. Through that process, we came up with the proposal to renovate, restore, and relocate to the National Frontier Trails Museum. And we did that for a couple of different reasons. When we started looking at the project, we did so really with two things in mind. First and foremost, restore the cabin, and secondly, place it in a location or ensure it's in a location where it will be used and the dollars that we're spending can be justified. Those dollars are tourism dollars. We have $75,000 in the budget to do this project, and we were able, through a competitive bid process, to secure a contractor that came in just actually below that at $74,500. So where we're at this stage is, based on your endorsement, hopefully this evening, we can go ahead and finalize that contract. The contractor has it on his schedule. He's ready to mobilize at the end of this month, early October. It is about an 8-week process in total. With weather, we'll give it 10. So it is a project that will be through the fall and into the early winter. The project, the sequencing is pretty cool. So the proposal first calls for the contractor to mobilize, get on site. We're actually supplementing some of the labor force with our own so that we can keep that cost down. Our staff is pretty excited about that because this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to really do this kind of work and grab those kind of skills that they're not going to more than likely have a chance to do in their career. So they're excited about doing this as well. So they'll be assisting with the first part of the restoration project, which is disassembly and tagging. So slowly we will be taking the cabin apart, loading it up onto a trailer, and then taking it up to the maintenance yard and actually pulling those pieces inside the maintenance shop, doing a pressure washing treatment on those, and then going through and analyzing each piece to see whether or not they can be reused or if they have to be replaced. If they have to be replaced, this particular contractor has a stockpile of circa 1850s logs that he has acquired from other cabin projects that he'll be using to replace those pieces with. Once those pieces that are identified as being able to be reused, they'll be retagged and they'll be stored until it's time to take them over to the National Trails Museum for reconstruction. Once we get to that phase, we will be prepping the site over at the National Frontier Trails Museum, which we chose very specifically for a couple of different reasons. One, it's protected. So it literally is like an outdoor exhibit space to the existing exhibit hall at the National Frontier Trails Museum. So it's physically connected. It has water on site, it has electric on site, it has security on site, it has the staffing on site. The operational monies to go ahead and program that and interpret it are already included in the museum, so operationally it makes sense as well. The cabin already, when it's relocated, will see a lot more visitors through the door just by way of including it as part of our educational program with the Independent School District. Every second grader, every fourth grader, every eighth grader in the district will be going into that cabin, which is much more than what we can say at its present location. You know, in and of itself, in its present site, we've tried over recent history since the 70s, it just isn't enough to generate enough tourism to really spend $75,000 and feel real good about that. But it will if we move it. It will get a lot more visitorship. We will save it, we'll interpret it appropriately, and it will be part of a bigger whole. And therefore, we can justify using tourism dollars for that. So about an 8 to 10 week project. The staff is already working on its interpretive programming and plans and all the implements, all the stuff that goes in it. So they're already actively coming up with that as well. So we're pretty excited about it, and hopefully this meets with your approval.
Thank you, Eric. It makes a lot of sense moving it there so you're going to have a full experience there of what the Pioneer life looked like. So thank you for your work and moving forward on this. Thanks.
And Eric, you've gone to the committees. I mean, we've had a lot of citizen engagement, I know, in the past year, and I know you've continued that. Could you just tell the rest of the council a little bit about that?
Yeah, we did have this discussion with the Tourism Commission first. They are the ones that oversee the tourism dollars. So obviously, if we're going to spend $75,000 on a tourism-related project, we wanted to make sure we had their endorsement as well, and we do. They're on board with that. And then we spoke with the National Frontier Trails Museum Friends Group because they're sort of the keepers and oversight of the National Frontier Trails Museum. So before we'd affected their operations in this way, we wanted to make sure that they were on board as well. They're extremely excited about it. They're looking at telling a little bit different story, a story that we really aren't telling yet at the National Frontier Trails Museum by way of adding this cabin into the program. So they're really excited as well.
Thank you.
Great, fantastic, thank you.
If I may?
Oh, yes.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I want to commend you on this because these are not the numbers I heard when it was brought to me for preservation. As a matter of fact, the cabin being newer than it is older, you may well make it more historic than it is now. I would caution using too much pressure, having been in there quite a few times. But here again, coming to and getting down what is needed. I can't thank you enough. This from 325,000 or some other numbers that we had heard before. And here, just like the animal shelter, when we hear what they want, we do something about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just one thing, maybe two, that I want to say. Thanks, Eric. Are you done? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm done, Mayor. Thank you.
Just to emphasize, there is a lot of work that goes on between Monday nights. We also have a utilities rates committee, which consists of myself, Councilman Huff, and Councilman Van Camp. And we've had some meetings recently, and as well, of course, as our PUAB on the proposed rate structure that we are working with to refine. One thing that we believe has been fairly clear is further consolidation of the classes. to continue to work on seeing if we can, what's been proposed is 12 classes, and see if there's a way to get those down a little bit. And of course, this committee will be involved with that, as well as the PUAB. But one thing that continues to come up, the council approved a 6% rate reduction, which has gone into effect in August. Moving forward, there's confusion about the council's intent. Was whether the intent was just to apply a 6% to everybody across the board, to do an average of 6%, to do no less than 6% on every single bill, every single account. And I'm not asking for direction tonight, but over the course of the next week or week and a half, we would like some input from the council members, which the city manager will, as he meets with you over the next week or so, if you would please kind of let him know what your intention was, because as we're developing these new rate classes, it has an impact on what they're going to look like for the outcome that the council intended. So we would appreciate your help in that. Adam, great work. Thank you. I never had any doubt that this was going to get worked out, and Bob and Chris, we were able to thank them before they left tonight. It's truly a huge step for our city, and I think a wonderful example of moving forward, how we can continue to bring these resources together on a more regular basis to really keep an eye on this ever-changing world of healthcare. So thank you very much. We're going to take a 5-minute break before we move on with the appeal hearing, and we'll be back in 5 minutes. Yeah.
Being part of the committee, I wanted to thank staff for what they brought. The 12 was a victory lap that we got it across. We wanted more, and you came back with more, and I've been working, and we've been working, excuse me, to get this done, and can't appreciate you enough.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute recess.